Good evening, everybody. My name is Vincent Kelly. How are you getting on? I am delighted to be here presenting this for you, a free webinar about achieving your goals in life, being true to yourself and your own goals in life. To introduce myself, I've been helping people for over 25 years in the area of self-improvement. I was in personnel management in business college, and I went traveling in Europe because I wasn't 100% sure exactly what I wanted to do. I didn't have really set goals for myself. I was kind of doing business studies because somebody I really loved did business studies. It was kind of that kind of thing. And so I went traveling in Germany, and I came across something, and it was a subject related to this book here called Dianetics, which means through the mind. And the webinar is based on this book. And I found in using it, I was trying to basically, my interest in self-improvement at the beginning was mainly for other people. And so I used this to help other people. And that was great, help them to achieve their goals, to be happy, because happiness and goals are nice and closely related. And that was great. And then I thought, something, I wouldn't mind sorting out my own goals in life. I wouldn't mind actually working out where I was going and what I should do. So I started to use a bit of Dianetics for myself, and it really, really, really helped me. I really got to the bottom of what was going on, what was holding me back. And so ever since then, I've just been promoting, working with people on a one-to-one basis, doing seminars, webinars, and so forth for a long period of time. And the reason I do is because it works. It's very straightforward and it works. And that's the only reason. And because it actually does help people. And this particular webinar is the free introductory webinar to a new set of 4 modules of an online course, which we're beginning on Friday, this coming Friday, the 5th of February. Now, before I begin, I want to welcome everybody who's joined us on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Hello, and thank you very much for joining us. The stars of the show this evening are everybody on Zoom, because I've got everybody on Zoom right beside me. So I just want to welcome you all individually. Thank you very much for joining me. Duncan, Walter, Toby, Paul, Levente, Aoife, Caroline, Una, Anita, Sylvia, I know you. Sylvia is working with me on the webinar tonight, so if you have any questions, you can send her any comments or questions that you have, personal ones, you can send them to her directly. Shirley, Joanne, Tina, Oscars, Adrian, Paul, Sigita, Irvins, Laura. Fantastic. Thank you so much, everybody. Now, at the beginning of every webinar, I always like to find out, where are you from? So if you would please do me this favor, pop where you're from in the chat. I just want to get an idea about where you're from. There's a couple of people I know there. I think I have a fair idea of where you're from. Maybe somebody from Latvia, perhaps. We just want to see, where are you from? Okay, so if you could put that into the chat. If you're on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram, pop a comment in. It's going to come around to me directly, because I've got somebody keeping an eye on those platforms for me. Okay. All right, who have we got here? Glasgow, Paul, hiya. I can't do a Glasgow accent, unfortunately, to make it real. But thanks very much for joining us, Paul. Adrian, hiya. Joanne, French, Canada. Hello, Joanne. Good to have you on the webinar. Nita is from Latvia, living in Ireland. Fantastic. I did learn a word in Latvian last week, and I've forgotten it. So it was hello in Latvian. So there you go. I should remember these things. Duncan's from England. Hi, Duncan. Aoife, Waterford. Yes. I won't tell you, because I mention it all the time when somebody's on the thing from Waterford, how I love Tramore, but it's kind of getting boring at this point. I just love Tramore. Oscars, Riga. Lovely. Una, you're still living here, and you're from Latvia. Tina's from Kerry. Yes, I saw a beautiful video. The Irish Guards did a video today, some dance-off kind of competition against the Swiss police or something, and Kerry did have a very prominent feature on it. They had their names in the sand, up Kerry and all that. From Latvia, living in Ireland. Okay, that's great. Thank you so much, everybody. That gives me a nice little picture. Everyone's from Riga, Latvia. Yes, I'll have to go to Latvia someday and meet everybody. Be nice. And everybody else who's joined us there, I said Laura, hello Laura, Ilse, Hannah, and Anna. Hannah from Galway. Hannah May, Galway, lovely. Love Galway. Love it. over there years ago. Very, very nice. Okay, home of art. Love the art of Galway, the music. Good old Galway. Croatia. Let's go Croatia. Okay, everybody, so thank you so much. We're going to get started. So, this is a webinar, so it's not a lecture. In other words, I'm not just going to stay up here talking. It's a webinar, so I would really appreciate it if you put your examples into the chat. Any questions or comments that you have, pop them into the chat. Send your comments into me, and I will see them here because I go through all the notes that come in. All right? Now, so let's go over the subject called goals, because that's why you're here. Okay, so as we all know, to have a goal is important for happiness. If you have no goal, it's kind of, it affects your happiness. Or if you failed in a goal, it affects your happiness. So let's have a little look about how important this is. So let's just say, I'm going to try to attempt a football field here, okay? So there's a football field, all right? And you have players, you got two teams, okay? And there's two teams out in a football team. Now, if you don't give them a goal, they're just going to be bumping into each other. You know, one's going to be arguing with the other. You know, it's going to be a bit of confusion, and there's going to be no real satisfaction in it. So you put the players out there with no goal, with no idea what they're after. Players on a football team will get bored and will soon become very, very unhappy. So what you have to do is you have to make sure that the goal is there, okay, for both sides. Okay, this team wants to get the ball into this net, and this team wants to get the ball into this net. And then you'll find the players are interested, they're excited, they want to do stuff, they want to play the game. And they now know what they're doing, and they can get busy doing it. And you'll find their happiness increasing. So it's very important that life is just a bit like a football team. I was going to say life is like a box of chocolates, but that would be too corny. I watched the Tom Hanks movie at the weekend. That's it. Castaway, yes. But life is a game, okay? And just like a football game, if you don't have goals, it is going to affect your happiness, okay? So it's very important that you set a goal and that it's your goal and that you want that goal, okay? Not just because your dad wants it for you or your wife wants it for you or your children want it for you, that you want that goal as well. They might also want the goal that you have, but it's important that you want it. Now, so let's have a look at what happens when we try to achieve our goals. And by the way, if you see me referring to these notes, I drew up these notes yesterday, and just to put together some examples for you. So I'll be referring to these as we're going along. Okay, now, so I'm sure everybody on the webinar has at least one goal, okay? You have something that you'd like to achieve. Maybe you want to become fit. Maybe you want to find a stable partner. Maybe you want your kids to grow up stronger. Maybe you want to get a better job, open a business, expand your business, help people. I don't know. Whatever it is, you have a goal, okay? So there's you. It's Matchstick Men tonight. And you have your goal, okay? This is the thing you are going for. Now, on your way to a goal, just like every goal, you're going to have things that stop you. Otherwise, it's kind of not really that interesting. Unless you have barriers to get over that goal, then fine. Then it kind of makes it too easy. So, you can have three situations going on. You can be getting over your obstacles. Okay? You can be getting over the problems to achieve your goal. Great. Fantastic. That could be happening. You're actually doing things and you are being successful in getting over the obstacles. And the more obstacles you get over, you will eventually reach your goal and then you can set a new one. The second situation is you hit a barrier. This is a barrier. Okay? And you don't get over it. In which case you get stuck at this point, or you go backwards. For example, let's say you had the goal to lose weight. Let's say you wanted to lose a stone in weight. You're a stone, or how many kilos is that? I don't know. We think of stone in Ireland. I don't know what it's like in Latvia, but yeah. stones and pounds. So, you want to lose a stone in weight, in body weight. And you know that you should give up sugar. But the big problem here is that you love sugar. You just love sugary things, you know. You love buns and you love chocolate and you love jellies, you know. You love all these things. And, you know, you just get to that problem and you just can't get over it. And so you end up, giving up. Or you go in reverse and you do it even more. In other words, you eat more sugar. So if you can't get over that sugar barrier, let's say, I'm just making this up as an example, you're either going to get stuck and go backwards, or what could happen is you go off course. All right? In other words, you decide, okay, I'm giving up sugar, that's fantastic. But then you decide, in order to substitute for that, you're going to have a bit of extra wine, more wine. Okay? So it's just a substitute. And it's not really leading you to your goal of fitness and health. You're kind of going off on a sidetrack. So what I'm trying to say here is that when you hit barriers, quite often when you don't have enough, whatever it is to get over, I'll go over this in a few minutes, to get over them, you'll either get stuck or you're going to get distracted. You're going to get pulled off course. All right? For example, a guy wants to be a doctor. He starts off in his first year in college to be a doctor. The material is very complicated. He doesn't know how to study. And so he goes off course because he can't get over that barrier. He goes off and decides to become a plumber. Or, he becomes, some other profession. In other words, his goal is lost sight of. So the big thing we're going to be going over tonight is how do you get over these barriers to achieve your goal? What is it going to take for you to get over those barriers to achieve your goal? Okay, now, so as I mentioned at the beginning, because I can't be doing all the talking, I'm going to ask you now for your examples. I'm going to do this regularly throughout. So I'm going to give you a piece of data and then I'm going to ask you for your own participation. Okay, so now the first thing I'd like you to do, and this is everybody on the webinar. Hello out there, everybody who can see me. I'd like you to think of a goal that you currently have. Just think of a goal that you currently have. Good. Now what I want you to do is I want you to write down what is the biggest barrier that you're hitting in order to that's stopping you from getting that goal, or that you see in front of you. What is the barrier that you see in front of that goal that's kind of preventing you from getting there? So that's what I want to find out. First of all, think of your goal, and now I want you to think of what is that barrier that you're facing which is preventing you from reaching that goal right now. So with that one, I'd like you to put that in the chat. I just want you to tell me what is the barrier you are facing in your goal. So take a moment to pop that into the chat, and I will read these. Oh, Shirley's from Ireland. Hi, Shirley. Good to have you. Good old Ireland. Love Ireland. Love this country. Okay, so good few examples coming in. Thank you. And everybody, please, if you wouldn't mind popping your examples in. I'm just looking for the barrier. I want you to participate because it will help you as well, and it helps me to get an understanding that you're actually understanding this well. Okay? Good. Diane, stress and boredom. Brilliant. Okay. Now the thing about it is, Diane, as I'll go over in a few minutes, stress and boredom tend to be a symptom of some external, of you not really getting over that barrier. Okay? So there might be something else that might be there. Okay? As well. Motivation. But there is a factor which causes this, and I'm going to go over this with you in the second part, which causes you to get stressed out and bored and prevents you from persisting. I'm really looking for what's the external thing here. Okay? Because I'm going to go over things like, and Aoife mentioned motivation. Yes, Aoife, that motivation is an issue, but again, it's a bit like a secondary result. There's some external barrier. Is it not enough time? Maybe there's not enough money. Maybe there's not enough communication skill. Maybe there's not enough, I don't know, whatever it is. Okay? Because lack of motivation is kind of a symptom of not having gotten over that barrier. Okay? So, but fine, it can still be regarded as a barrier itself. Meet someone with COVID as barrier. Okay, good. Yeah, COVID. That is a barrier. Hannah, top of the class. We all have barriers now. We're trying to connect with people. You know, you can't go more than 5 kilometers from your house. That's kind of a barrier. So, brilliant example. Paul, barrier is, that's a good one. Goal is to lose 10 kgs, and the main barrier is, I love food too much. Well, do you know what? There's nobody asking you to stop eating food, but as we'll go over, you can work out the best way to approach that. Get a job that pays well, but I can't find one. Yeah, great example. You know what you want, and then you're like, where is it? Where is this job? And so that is a barrier that you can't even see where that job is to prepare yourself for it. So good one, Joanne. Thank you. Thinking because of my age, I wouldn't get into age. I don't really agree with the age thing. I think anybody can achieve anything at any stage of life. An example is the guy who started Kentucky Fried Chicken. He started, I think, when he was in his 60s. So yeah, lack of skills, that can be improved. Barrier, don't believe in self and have low self-esteem. Thank you, Hannah. We're going to go over all this. Goal, to survive well and stay healthy. Barrier, risks to well-being relating to current. Yeah, good example. You know, so you go out there into the environment, and there are concerns that, you know, it might affect you. Okay, there are concerns there, so that's good. Thoughts, good. Thanks, Sarmita. Motivation, self-doubt. Thank you. Eat a little bit more fish. Adrian, eat a little bit more nutritious food. Lack structure. Okay. Find something else to focus on. Okay. Lack of concentration. Thank you, Antoinette. Stop eating sweets. Barrier, stress. Buying sweets for kids. So lack of discipline. Thank you, Anita. Brilliant example. Yeah. Good. Walter, thank you. 5 km is a pain. That's true. Communication skills, relevance. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. So you can see then that when you hit a barrier, it can really stick you there, and it really does affect your motivation. So anybody who's mentioned motivation or drive or stress, you probably find that maybe a little bit of time ago you did have a barrier that you hit, and you kind of got it kind of knocked you back a little bit. Okay, so thank you very much. Now, so I'm going to go over something with you. Now, if anybody has this book at home, I'm going to show you a little bit more about this book at the end. It's on page 50 of this book, and it's a little formula. Now, who wants to go back to school tonight? Yeah, nobody else. Okay. Well, there's a subject there that you learned in school about adding and subtracting numbers. And I'm just going to relate to that a little bit. Please don't leave. I'm not going to actually send you back to school, but I want to show you a little formula which determines how well you're going to get over those barriers. Okay? Because you know what the barriers are in front of you, how are you going to get over them? And then we'll go into the internal stuff. I know there's the motivation, the internal lack of self-confidence and all that kind of stuff is going on inside as well. Okay, so now let's have a look at the first thing. So now I'm going to teach you a little bit of that subject, which you all know the name of, but I'm not going to name it because you've got people from different countries here and I don't want to create a misunderstood word. Okay, Hannah, I'm sorry, you had to get in there and say it, didn't you? Thanks, Hannah. Okay, I better tell you what this is anyway. Well, maths. This is a subject that a lot of people had trouble with in school, and it's short for mathematics. And it's not just adding and subtracting. It's got, I'm going to just tell you this, arithmetic, which is basically plus, minus, divided by, that kind of stuff. And then it's got other things connected with it, like the speeds, how to work out speeds, not spears, speeds. How to work out speeds, distances, all that type of stuff. That's what mathematics is. So you all, pretty much everybody would have done this subject when you were a kid. All right? Or maybe even recently. Okay, now, so I'm going to go over a little formula here which will explain to you whether you're likely to get over those barriers or not. And then I'm going to show you what you do to handle it. Okay, so don't worry if I go over this section and you cave yourself in and you're thinking, oh God, I'm terrible or whatever. Don't worry. I'm going to show you how to actually dig yourself back out of it again. Okay, so PV. Now, I'm going to do the formula here. I'm going to start off with this one here. It basically means potential value. Okay, now, potential means how much of there is there a possibility or an ability to achieve something in the future, and value is a person's worth or usefulness. So I'll just pop that in. Potential means, let's say, possible for future. And value basically means worth or usefulness. In other words, when you're going to achieve your goal, okay, there's you, and how much do you consider yourself valuable? What is your potential value in terms of achieving that goal? So for example, if you have, let's say, a small potential value, which means that you don't consider that you're useful enough to get where you want to go, or something is holding you back, then it's very possible that when you hit that barrier, it's not going to happen. Whereas if you have a high potential value, there's a very good chance that you're going to get over that obstacle toward that goal. Now, so I'll give you an example of this. As a kid, I used to play football, okay, with my neighbours and the guys in school and so forth. And there'd always be somebody, a captain of each team, and then you have to pick the players for your team. And of course what you do, because you want to win, you want to achieve your goal, you pick the guys that are going to score goals for you, or going to be very good. So usually what happens is the people with the highest potential value get picked for the football team first. Now that doesn't mean that somebody who's very quiet or timid on the team does not have a potential value, and it doesn't mean that a potential value cannot be developed in somebody, but it's just an example of how you will pick people around you, okay, with a high potential value who are going to help you, who are useful to you in terms of achieving your goals. So for example, if you, let's say you want to open a business, well, you're going to hire staff, okay? You're going to hire staff who have the possibility that they're going to be very useful to help you and them achieve their goals, both of your goals, okay? When you want to start a relationship, you want to pick somebody who has a high potential value, and I'm going to show you what it's made up of in a minute, who has a high potential value. In other words, this partner, whether it's a boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, the possibility that they are going to help you and they're going to be useful in terms of achieving the overall goal of survival is high. Okay? So this is basically what a person's potential value is. Okay? Now, what I'd like you to do is this. I'm going to just pause for a moment because I know I haven't broken this down, and I'm going to break this down in a minute. I'm going to break down what this is made of in a minute. But what I want you to do now is this. This is the next practical exercise. I want you to think of somebody in your life that you know, if you want to get a job done, if you want them to do something, they're the people to ask. In other words, I want you to pick somebody in your life who you know has a high potential value. In other words, you know if you ask them to get something done, or you need them to get something done, they're going to get something done. Now, I don't care who that is or what it is. Maybe it's your son and he can sweep the floor, or it's an employee who can boom sales. So I want you to think of somebody in your life who has a high potential value. In other words, you know that they're going to get it done. Thanks, Duncan. 51. All right. So just pick somebody in your life who you know if you ask them to do something, they're going to get it done. Mention that visited 500,000. Okay, good. Thank you, Shirley. Yes. Good idea. Well, leave that with me. Okay. Parents. Good. Hannah, brilliant. Yeah, you know something? I admire parents. Parents are just amazing on what they can actually do for their kids and so forth. Yeah, they're quite often underlooked because they tend to do everything for the kids, but they're great. Call up your dad or your mum and they'll do anything for you. It's Fantastic. Okay, best friend, Aoife. Fantastic. You know you can rely on her. She has a high potential value, which means that if you need help on something, you know she's going to come through. She's going to get it done. Okay, brilliant. Thank you. Antoinette, your son, Daryl, brilliant. Antoinette, fantastic. Adrian, your brother. Duncan, kid brother. Sarmita, husband. Yeah, very good. Maija, daughters, my close friends. Yeah, always can trust them. These are people with a high potential value. Okay, to you. Paul, brother in America. Fantastic. Okay, now let's show you the next ingredient. So that's what potential value is. Now that I'm teaching you about formulas, I feel like a teacher. I feel like a school teacher. Any teachers there on the webinar? If you are, you're a good person. Okay, now, potential value equals, there's only two symbols I'm going to show you. I. Now this word I, I'm just going to write down potential value here so that we don't forget it. I basically means intelligence. Now, I want to clear up what this word intelligence is, because it doesn't mean that you have a degree in, I don't know, how to build an airplane or how to work out the speed of light. It doesn't necessarily mean that. There's nothing wrong with knowing those things, fine, but it's not really that. I'm going to read to you the definition here, and this is from, now, I think Duncan told me it was on page 50. This one is definitely on page 50, Duncan, okay, for telling me that. Okay, this is page 50 of the Dianetics book as well. This is what intelligence is. And believe me, this is important for you to be able to achieve your goals. Intelligence is the ability, okay, so there's your goal, okay? It's the ability to perceive, which means basically see or be able to experience or sense. Pose means put there. Pose means just put there, okay? And the third thing is resolve. Okay, let's get rid of this word here for a second, because all these things are problems. Intelligence is basically the ability to perceive. Pose. Perceive means being able to see the problem. Pose means to be able to put a problem there. For example, if you're working out how to make extra money, then you're going to put a problem where I need to open up my own business. Well, there's a problem you've just put there. So it's the ability to perceive, pose, and resolve problems. This is important. The ability to resolve problems. The ability to perceive, pose, and resolve problems. That's what intelligence is. Now, of course, there are lots of intelligence tests which will give you a number, and you can compare your number to somebody else. But you know what? You don't necessarily just need a test to do that. You can always just work it out for yourself and work it out based on your experience with somebody else. So, now, here's the thing. If you're able to think clearly, if you're able to work things out yourself, able to work out what the right solution is in all these different scenarios, your intelligence level will be good. If you're not able to think clearly, you just can't think. You can't work things out, you can't even look. Never mind think. You can't look at the problem. Because when you have a problem, the first thing you need to be able to do is look at it. And if you can't even look at the problem, you're not going to be able to resolve the problem. It's going to be tricky. If you can't even see it, or if you see it but you don't want to look at it, and so forth. So intelligence is the ability to perceive, which means to look at. Pose means put there, and resolve problems. The ability to perceive, pose, and resolve problems. Okay. Now, I gave a little bit of an example here. Yeah, no, it's fine. It's a participation. Okay, so I'm going to show you how this works. If you are very clever, in other words, if your intelligence level is high, so he has high intelligence, right? And you have a goal here, there's many different roads you can take that may or may not lead you to that goal. Some roads will lead you on a different path. But your high intelligence will help you to pick the best path for you to take. The best path. Or one of the best paths. So if you are somebody who has good intelligence, you're able to resolve problems, you're going to be able to pick the right path. I'm going to tell you what messes the whole thing up in a few minutes, but that's the basic thing that you need. Now, here's the next ask of you, if you don't mind. I'd like you, what did I ask here? I'd like you to think of, this is just a thinking of exercise. I'd like you to think of somebody, and it could be yourself, in your life that you consider to have a high intelligence. In other words, they're able to think of things very cleverly, very logically, very rationally. And they don't have to be somebody who has, these fantastic, huge qualifications. I want you to think of somebody that you know in your life that's very clever. In other words, they can work things out very clearly. Okay? Because that's the determination of how high a person's intelligence level is, how they can resolve problems. So I just want you to think of somebody in your life who is very clever. And I don't mean clever in a bad way, I mean clever in a good way. In other words, they can work things out very logically. Okay? Good. Yeah, okay, very good. Trusted performance of a psychologist. Very practical. Okay, good. Now, the next thing I want you to do is I want you to do this. I want you to think of the last time you worked out a very clever solution to a problem. Just think of the last time you worked out a very clever solution to the problem, and would you please pop it into the chat if you don't mind. Just give you a moment to do that. The last time you worked out a very clever solution to a problem. If you can't think of one right now, don't worry about it. But if you can and you want to pop it into the chat, then please do. Or if you're on Facebook, YouTube, or Instagram, pop it into the comments and it will come back around to me in Zoom. Okay. Good. Antoinette, what was it today? Hannah, I got what you said. Clever like me, worked a solution to lose 10 kgs of weight. Okay, good. Very good. Okay, folks, so I want to put the whole thing together for you, so I don't want to kind of get hung up too much on this one, but if anybody wants to pop in examples there, what else do we have there? Una, found a way to send emails with a choice of 2 languages in the email itself. Beautiful. Great. Nice bit of marketing strategy. I've worked out I have an older edition of Dianetics from 2007. Duncan, thank you very much. An older edition of Dianetics where the pages number 50 and 51 might have been different. Thank you, Duncan. Brilliant. Now, so let's go on to the next part of the formula. Okay, now, the next one is this one here. Let's put this in a new color. Multiplied by, oh, this is really sounding like back in school. Multiplied by this letter D. Okay? And you know what? I'm going to get rid of the X because it can also be represented by a dot. Okay? Now D, this symbol stands for the word dynamic. Now, I'm going to read out to you the definition of dynamic. I had it here. Yeah, so basically dynamic just means the degree to which you can persist. In other words, how high is your urge to survive? How good are you? How much energy, enthusiasm, how much drive do you have? We went over intelligence. Intelligence is important. And this is the second ingredient, drive. How much energy do you have? How much enthusiasm do you have? How much of an urge to survive do you have? That's what it is. Now, there's a person, he has a lot of drive. He has a goal. And a person with a higher drive is going to be able to push themselves to get over that barrier. Okay? They're going to have to push themselves to get over. So when they hit it, they'll keep going and keep going and keep going, and they'll persist and persist and persist until they get over that barrier. Okay? I'm going to combine these two now in a moment. Okay, so that is this person's dynamic. When you hit a barrier, do you have enough energy, enough drive, enough persistence to keep going? This is the second major ingredient. Now, here's the next practical example I'd like you to think of. You don't have to put these in the chat, but you can just think of this. I'd like you to think of somebody in your life, and again it could be you, that you consider has a lot of drive. In other words, they really do persist. You know, they're just, you know, you can't stop them, just keep going, you know. They've a lot of enthusiasm. You know, when they hit a barrier, they get up and they keep going for it. You see this in a lot of sports stars. You know, they hit the pain barrier or the fitness barrier, and they just persist and persist and persist. This is somebody with a very high dynamic. So dynamic basically just means degree of persistence. Okay? That's how much it is. How high you can persist. How much you can persist. Okay, now, we're going to pop these all together. Yeah. And I want you to also, I asked you to think about somebody in your life who's got a very high persistence level. You can pop it in the chat if you want. You don't have to, but I just want you to think about it. And I also want you to think about the last time that you showed a high degree of persistence. Think of the last time that you showed a high degree of persistence. Because that is how high your dynamic is in that particular area of your life. For example, a person can be very persistent in terms of physical health. But in terms of their relationship, they could be very givey-uppy. In other words, they don't persist. Or a person could be very, very driven in his job. He's very persistent. But when it comes to his physical health, he's just like, oh, I couldn't be bothered. I'm not going for a jog tonight. I couldn't be bothered. Show me that bag of jellies. Okay? Now, okay, everybody, you're making some comments there, great. Thank you very much. Guys, I'm going to come back and I'm going to catch up on these comments in a moment, all right? Because I want to put the whole thing together here. So, potential value is intelligence multiplied by dynamic. In other words, the person's degree of persistence, how much energy, enthusiasm, and so forth that they have. And there's one last little symbol I'm going to throw in here. Horrible thing to do to you. But it's... this X means to the power of. All it means is this, right? If you've got 3 to the power of 3, okay, all that means is 3 multiplied by 3 multiplied by 3 equals 27. That's all it means. How many times is the thing multiplied by itself? And the reason it's here is only to show that a person's potential value can be expanded and expanded and expanded. That's all it is. So the main thing we're going to concentrate on is potential value is intelligence multiplied by dynamic. Now, I want to show you this. And this is key. Let's leave those up here and leave these symbols here because you want to show this to your teacher and how great you've all been in class today. Okay, so we'll just put in intelligence and dynamic. Okay, and this is we'll just put in persistence here. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how this combines together, right? You can have a person, right? So there's Joe, okay? And I'm just going to make up some figures here, right? Let's say Joe has an intelligence of 1, okay? 1 is his intelligence, okay? And let's say he has a drive of 9, okay? That's his drive or his dynamic. Well, 9 multiplied by 1 equals 9. So Joe has 9 units, 9 of a potential value in order to get to his goal. Okay, if the goal is a small goal, maybe it's fine. Or it could be a goal that he finds easy to do, whatever. Okay, next one. Now, let's say you have Mary, and she has an intelligence of 9, okay? She's an intelligence of 9, so she's quite smart, but her drive is 1. And again, you've got 9 by 1 equals 9, so she has 9 units to achieve her goal. Okay? 9 units. Like, I give you, just backtrack here. Like, for example, Joe, he has a very high drive. So let's say this guy is very persistent. He's brilliant at sports. He drives things, you know, he's full of energy. He's just full of energy. But his intelligence is not high. Which means that he's going to drive forward, but it's going to be difficult for him because he's not also being clever about it. He's not also being able to think clearly. Now Mary, very intelligent, but drive is low, which means very, very smart. Like a person could have 1,000,000 IQ, intelligence quotient is just how much intelligence a person has. A person could have a very high intelligence, but if their dynamic is very low, what are they going to achieve with it? They're not going to be able to get themselves going. Now, let's take a look at the third person. And the third person here, we'll call this Josie. Okay, make it a man and a woman. Okay, so Josie has got an intelligence of 9, and she's got a drive of 9. 9 by 9 equals 81. Okay? And so, who do you think is more likely to achieve their goal? It's the person who has the highest potential value. Now look, potential value is different for every single person because we've all got different levels of intelligence and we've all got different levels of drive. But the higher you have in these two numbers, the higher potential value you have, the more likely it is that you're going to get over those obstacles towards your goal because you need two things. You need number 1, intelligence, and you need number 2, persistence. Okay? Now, let's see, I wrote down an example here. Okay, yeah. So, let's. We don't even have to go too far afield. You could have, let's say, somebody, a mother, okay, and she is very good at working out bills. She's very, very good at working out the best solutions in terms of shopping, in terms of how to handle her kids, in terms of the best nutrition. She's very clever about how she handles things for her family. Very logical. Plus, she's very persistent. In other words, she'll just drive forward whatever it takes to make sure her family are doing well and she's doing well. This is somebody, and I absolutely admire mothers and so forth, to be able to handle everything for their family and their kids because it shows a high degree of intelligence and a high degree of drive. And so if you've got somebody, housewife, or it could be a farmer or whatever, who have a high intelligence and high drive, the chances of success are very, very high. Now, so that's all brilliant. That's all fantastic. Let me just catch up on a few comments. Because I've lost it. I don't know what question it relates to now, so I'm going to go back here and see what we've done. Duncan, I read that message. Yes, Falter got me through some obsession, social anxiety. Great, Adrian. Need to say your mother. Yes, 3-year-old. Okay, Hannah. All right. Former work colleague. Wonderful. enormous dynamic, not been using intelligence at all, in spite of an IQ test. Intelligence high degree of persistence. When I used to work for a sales company a few decades ago, it would be like a bulldog and keep on calling the customers until I got the hardware and electrical orders out of them. Okay, yeah, and like it does apply in sales, because a person can be very, very persistent in sales, but not be very clever. That can happen as well, and they don't achieve their goals. They don't get the sales at the end of the day. Does this mean that Joe is a dodo? Okay, Hannah, thank you for the question. No, it does not mean Joe is a dodo. Thank you, Hannah. All right. Now, I'm going to show you now what messes up your intelligence and what messes up your dynamic, and then how to restore it. So, let me just show you this. No, I'm going to get rid of a few of these because I need my blank canvas to do my art. Okay. Every day in life, you are trying to achieve some goal. Maybe you just want to get to the end of the day. Maybe you want to become fit. Maybe you want to make money for the end of the week. But you have a goal, okay? And every day, you are taking in information that is going to maybe help you with that goal, maybe not. As you're taking in this information, you have this recorder thing, which we call the mind, and it basically stores all the information. So for example, if you were in school and you learned how to bake a cake, well, you have that information there because you observed it, you learned it, and now when somebody asks you to bake a cake, it's a barrier, but you can get over it easily. You use the information that's in here and use it externally. So every day you are taking in information, and when you hit a barrier, you take in that information as well, you compare it to what you've learned, and you come up with a solution. Okay? Every day you're hitting barriers and you're working out solutions to your problems every single day. I was trying to think of a good example of this, and I thought to myself, I was coming down the stairs here this evening, and I thought, you know something? Even just walking down the stairs, there's actually quite a lot of calculation involved. We all take it for granted that everybody can walk down the stairs, but you know there's quite a lot of calculation. Because if you've had a drink or something, and it becomes very, very complicated. Now, this is kind of the ideal situation, where you're facing your problems and you're absorbing the information and you're using what you've learned to get more solutions. The problem is this. There are two of these, let's say, problems or barriers that can have a massive effect on you internally. And when we were asked earlier about the stress and the motivation problems and the lack of positivity inside you, what I'm going to go over right now is where it comes from. There are two things that cause the lights to go out here. Okay? And the first one is when you hit an incident or a barrier which causes you physical pain. Okay? Okay, for example, you're jogging to get fit and you get knocked down by a car. All right? Physical pain, it was a barrier because there's a car just in your way and it knocked you down, so it is a barrier and it had physical pain in it. Now when that happens, the lights go out here to a large or a small degree, and there's a second part of the mind, which we call the reactive mind. And it's called reactive because it just reacts. It doesn't think. It's like a push button. The information gets stored in here. And that happens with physical pain. So if you have a football injury, you fell out of a tree or whatever it is, those incidents get stored in here because the lights go off a little bit here. Now, the next barrier that can have a massive effect on you internally is loss. In other words, moments of loss that you've experienced in your past. And what happens is, instead of the information, you just process it and you kind of work it out, the information gets stuck in here. This is like a hidden part of the mind that stores the pain that you've experienced in your past. So all those goals that you tried to achieve, which ended up being a massive loss for you. For example, you started your own business, but it failed and you lost 100,000 euros. That's a massive loss, and that can be stored in here. Or you tried to become fit and you got knocked down by a car and there's an injury there. That has an effect internally. So the reactive mind is basically a part of your mind that stores up the pain, the physical pain and the emotional pain. Why is it called reactive? Because all it takes is something similar to happen again in the future to trigger it off. Here's how the reactive mind thinks. Well, I'm going to hang on to this information about this accident that you had. Someday you might need it. As soon as the reactive mind sees something in the environment that's similar to what happened before, it will send a message saying, get away from there. Get out of that situation and get out of that fast. So your reactive mind is basically trying to, basically pull you away from what it thinks is pain. So the reactive mind thinks this is pain, and so it tries to take you away from that. And you don't know what's going on. You're trying to, why am I doing this? Why am I giving up? And now you try to work it out with your analytical mind why you're doing it. Because you have to be right? You want to be right about things. You want to work things out. But this is a hidden part of your mind. It's nice and buried underneath the surface and can affect the way you think. Now, I wrote down some examples. Let's see. So both of these things, especially, so the first one, for example, the physical pain one, can cause you, basically what happens is this reactive mind starts affecting the computer, so you're not thinking as clearly. So your intelligence gets suppressed. And particularly losses, when you lose somebody close to you, whether it's a child or a family member or a friend, it massively affects your dynamic. So let's say you've got, let's get rid of that, you've got 100% energy available. Every time you have a massive loss, it traps a certain portion of it. So the more painful experiences that you've had that have gotten internal, the more likely it is that your intelligence is going to get affected. And the more losses that you've experienced in your past, the more likely it is that your level of energy and your persistence is going to be down. Now, I'm going to just give you some examples, and then I am going to ask you for your examples. I'm going to ask you for two examples, an example of physical pain and an example of an emotional pain. Okay, that's that one. Right. So, I'll give you these examples, and then you can come up with your own, right? So let's say you have a goal to lose weight, okay? But back here, you had a loss of somebody that you loved who actually had a heart attack when they were outside getting fit. So now you try to reach a certain, I know this is maybe an extreme example, but I'm going to make them as extreme as possible to just show you a little bit how this reactive mind affects you. So you have this loss of a very close friend of yours who died trying to get fit. Okay? Now you're out, you're running every day, it's great, and you're getting to a certain fitness level. Your reactive mind comes in and goes, hang on a second, I have a memory here of a time when somebody close to you died, so I can't tell the difference, and I'm not going to sit around here waiting for you, so I'm just going to give you a message into this part of your mind here, get out of this situation, and just go home and sit on the couch, it's safer. So if you thought it was you, if you thought the problem was you, I can assure you that the biggest issue that's going on has to do with the storage. You wouldn't say that a person is his house. Okay? It's the storage of stuff, the storage of pain from your past that's affecting you the most. Another example. You want to open up your own business, okay? But you have a loss here of a time when you had a business and it went into a disaster, okay? And so you try to open up a new business, and it gets to a certain level, your reactive mind comes in and says, you know what, there's pain there, you're getting out of there. So it sends messages into the mind saying, out you go. And you don't know what's going on. So you try to explain it to yourself, oh, it must be because I'm not meant for this. It must be something about, maybe it's the wrong path. Maybe I should have done a different degree in college. You try to work out why you're making this decision, and you come up with an idea of what you think it is, but usually it's not the real reason. The real reason is nice and buried here. I'll give you one other example. A girl has a goal to get into a good relationship, a stable relationship, but she had a loss in the past of a boyfriend or a husband. And so if there's any similarity out here to what happened before, the reactive mind just reacts. Causes her to lose the temper or find reasons not to trust the guy and so forth. Now, here's what I would like you to do. I hope I haven't gone, I know there's a lot of drawing up there, and you can take a picture of this and sell it on the internet if you like. I don't mind. This picture of this wonderful work of art. Okay, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to think about, where's this example? Yeah, an example of a time you had a goal that you didn't achieve, and I'd like you to think about why you didn't achieve it. Why didn't you achieve it? You had a goal that you wanted to achieve, and why didn't you achieve it? Just think about that. Now, usually what you come up with are things that you're 100% true, you're sure are correct. It's because of this, it's because of that, it's because of this, because of this, not enough money, time, etc. and so forth. Okay, there may be some validity in those things, because from a logical perspective, it was fine. But why is it that you gave up? You all of a sudden, you went in the opposite direction. You lost your motivation. The main reason why that's underneath the surface is this baggage that you've got stored in this reactive mind that affects the way you think, the way you act, and the way you feel. So, how do you dig yourself out of this? Yes, Hannah, laziness. Laziness is a big issue, and motivation and so forth. But you know something? If you look at kids and young teenagers and so forth, laziness doesn't seem to be an issue. They're usually very, very energetic, But as soon as you have all these experiences, it can really ruin this. So I'm going to just summarize this for you, right? If you have a high degree of intelligence and a high drive, the possibility of you getting over those barriers to achieving your goals is much, much higher. There has to be a combination of both intelligence and drive. Those two things. Not just drive by itself, not just intelligence by itself. Together, they need to work together. Now, this is the biggest problem when it comes to you pulling yourself back, changing your mind, doubting yourself, going internal. I'm going to show you briefly now what we do to handle this. I'm going to get rid of this. I'm sure you're sick of seeing that now, this maths formula. Okay, if anybody's lost, contact us afterwards, send us an email, and we'll answer any questions that you have, okay? As I mentioned at the beginning, there's this subject called Dianetics, and by the way, I know we're coming up to 9 o'clock, I won't be too much longer, I'm just going to show you briefly the solution, and then I'm going to tell you what I recommend for you. Okay, so it's going to be very quick. Now, how do you clear the baggage? Look, a lot of people, in order to handle goals, right, what they do is they try and change their mind, they change their mind and try and do something else. Or they attend webinars, like this one. And you get inspiration for a day, and then it goes back down again. So the approach that I take with people, and that I do strongly recommend people take as well, is to clear up the root of the issue, which is buried in this thing called the reactive mind. So here's what we do to handle it. We have a thing called auditing. That means to listen and to guide. Okay, you've got a person called an auditor. He's the person delivering the help to somebody else. Auditor means somebody who listens and guides. He doesn't tell a person what to think, give them advice about their life, tell them what goal they should take, tell them what direction they should take. He just listens and guides. The person receiving the help, eyes closed but wide awake, is called a pre-clear. Pre means before, and clear is basically the state that you're aiming for. It's basically somebody who's cleared up the pain and is back to themselves again. This is an end result of Dianetics. In other words, you're not going to do Dianetics forever. It's not a way of life. It is done until the pain from the past is cleared up. And when that happens, a person will see a massive difference in terms of how they feel about themselves, how they're able to think more clearly. That's the word clear, able to think clearly. And their ability to motivate themselves to get things done. So in other words, simply by clearing this stuff, you're going to have a resurgence in intelligence, and you're going to be able to recover your drive, your motivation, and so forth. So that's the idea. That is the procedure of Dianetics. I've stuck with this for over 25 years because it works. And it gives stable, long-term results. Yes, it takes time. Yes, it's a bit of work. A bit of work is an understatement. But when it's handled and it's cleared up, that's it, it's done. Now, when somebody is clear, that doesn't mean they're never going to have problems in the future. Of course they're going to have problems. They're not always going to have a smile on their face, but it's going to be much, much, much easier to handle those issues. Okay, so that's what auditing is, and the full procedure is explained in this book. Okay, now, before I wrap up with my recommendation, please bear with me. I won't be too much longer. I know you're down for that cup of tea, so just hang on. Okay. Yeah, lazy to do this wasn't my goal. Let's see, where did I... Oh, you're going at 9, Hannah. I understand. That's completely fine. Okay. Okay. Goal to give up sugar and walk a mile a day. Okay, Hannah, great. All right. Stimulation negative experience. Thank you, Duncan. Development project blocked by outmoded regulations. With the passage of time, advanced technologies means I now have no blockages. Okay, Shirley, thank you. Get married, but it just didn't happen. It was like subconsciously running away. Okay, reactive mind kicks in a lot in the relationship area. Paul had a goal to travel South Africa. Lockdown happened. Yes, well, that's another situation. Emotional losses, loss of 4 VIPs in my life within the last 4 months, impact my state of mind, concentration, momentum. Now striving to get back on track with a clear, rested mind and spirit. Okay, Shirley, great. Thank you very much. These losses and painful experiences really can affect your intelligence and can affect your dynamic, and the whole idea of Dianetics is to get you to work on clearing that stuff up. Okay, so now folks, here's what I'm going to recommend for you right now. If you are the kind of person, hint hint Shirley, and everybody else as well, and you want to achieve your goals, you want to do something about your life, you want to improve your intelligence and your dynamic. Well, as I mentioned at the beginning, this webinar is the introductory webinar to a series of 4 online modules of a new online course that we're starting on Friday, which I'm delivering. As I mentioned, it's based on this book, Dianetics. And if you register for this online course, and the link is going to be going up in a moment, if you register for it, the Dianetics book will be sent out to you free of charge. And it's a great book. It's got everything in it. It's like, look at the size of it. It's absolutely great. It's a huge volume. So, yeah, the link is there. Anyway, thank you, Sylvia. So you can check it out. And you don't have to click it now. As soon as or you can if you want. But when the webinar finishes, you'll be able to click the link as well, because it'll stay open. I'll be gone, but you'll be able to still click on the link. So you can check it out. So I'd recommend strongly to join me on this 4-part online course. We're going to be breaking down the basic parts of the mind and the basic ingredients in here of this reactive mind, what it's made of, and what you're going to do about it. In other words, what you are actually going to do to handle it. Okay, it's be very interesting. Each module is a simple block. 1 block, 2 block, 3 block, 4 block. You have those 4 basics that you're going to need to really start getting on top of things in your life. So the link is there, and so forth. Adrian, good question. One that you should ask Sylvia for the ebook. I don't know I don't know, to be honest, is the question, is the answer. Okay, so if you're the kind of person who you've got more questions, or you're not sure, or you want to go over your own personal situation, then send a message into Sylvia. Sylvia is the host on the webinar. You can also put your comments into YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, and just give her a time and a day that you'd like a call, and she can give you a call, and you can go over that with her. Okay, so those are the 2 things. If you want to get going, sign up for the online course, which is starting on Friday. It's 4 modules, and it includes a copy of this book. And all the data I gave you tonight is from this book. Okay, very, very good stuff. And again, if you want to get more data first, you have more questions, then send a little message into her to Sylvia through the chat, and she can organise an appointment for you. Okay, folks, it's 6 minutes past 9. Look, I'm sorry I went over a bit. I just get excited when I'm talking about these things. You should have not let me lose control. Anyway, really appreciate you being here. I'm going to say my goodbyes now, but I want to thank you all. For everybody on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram, I can't see you directly, but I want to thank you very much for your time and your attention tonight, and for being here and listening to this information. For everybody on Zoom, thank you all very much for your examples. They were absolutely fantastic. It's great to get participation. I hope this has been of benefit to you. I hope this has helped you to understand a little bit more about what needs to be handled, and that you'll start to use it and get going on this online course. So to finish off, I just want to say goodbye and thank you to Duncan, Walter, Toby, Levente, Aoife, Caroline, Una, Sylvia, sorry, you know me, Shirley, Joanne, Tina, Oscars, Adrian, Paul, Irvins, Ilse, Maija, Antoinette, who else is there? David, Guna, Jordan, Sarmita, and Michael. Thank you all very much for your time and your attention. Let's see. Yeah, who acknowledged me there? I better acknowledge your acknowledgement. You're welcome, Adrian, Joanne, Una, Walter, Duncan, Paul, Caroline. Thank you so much for your nice acknowledgements. Okay, everybody, have a beautiful evening. The webinar is going to stay open, but I'll be gone, and I'll see you next time. Okay, take care.